she said the word I
Yes.
49 times in a 10-minute speech. So
Yeah.
Meghan and Harry, they're not even of value these days in the charitable sector, it seems.
That one detail tells you everything you need to know about where the Sussex empire stands right now. And it is crumbling faster than anyone in their PR team wants to admit. This is the story of a brand that had everything: royal titles, Netflix money, global attention, and a fairy tale wedding watched by millions. And then, piece by piece, torched it all to the ground. Here is what the mainstream media is not putting together for you: the Met Gala snub, the collapsed charity relationships, the staff exodus with a retention rate so catastrophic it would kill any normal business overnight, the Australia tour that became a masterclass in how not to monetize a royal title, and whispers from inside Harry's circle that the man is not just unhappy, he is done. But before we get to the breaking point, you need to understand how we got here. Harry was once the most beloved member of the British royal family. Genuinely. Polls put him above even the late Queen Elizabeth at certain points. He was the fun one, the soldier, the lad who served in Afghanistan, who laughed at himself, who the public actually rooted for. And Meghan arrived at that 2018 Windsor wedding to streets 15 deep with cheering crowds. The goodwill was extraordinary. It was real. It was theirs to keep.
Well, they wanted their cake and to eat it too. And hypocritical Harry, obviously, they declared their worldwide privacy tour a long time ago. I remember when he was by that lake in Canada, Mark. I remember that photograph of him. He had a woolly hat on. He had Archie in his arms. He was beaming ear to ear. And I remember at the time thinking, while it was at that juncture a dreadful loss for them to have left the royal family, and I covered their wedding, they were 15 deep in the streets of Windsor and everybody was so effusive. I thought, you know what? Good on Harry. He's doing what he wants to do to live this life. And we all know that he went to California and they went to LA and hired 3 PR firms, and the rest is history. But Mark, what I think is the saddest is they squandered what the Queen had high hopes for, our beloved Queen Elizabeth, and that was for them to be in the Commonwealth. And they could have been such a benefit to the Commonwealth countries. And yes, I think there's a lot of tension from everything I hear everywhere. And I think the saddest part is you can see the sadness in Harry's eyes.
Queen Elizabeth herself made sure of it. She opened doors for Meghan that she reserved for almost nobody, gave her patronages of deeply personal significance, the Association of Commonwealth Universities, organizations the Queen had nurtured for decades. She was handing Meghan a legacy, a platform, a purpose.
Well, she was, we know, and I go into this in my book, but I mean, she was very sad and very disappointed. She felt she'd really pushed the boat out to make Meghan welcome, to ensure that she had a proper sort of royal career, gave her patronages that mattered a great deal to the Queen herself, things like the patron of the Association of Commonwealth Universities, very old organization. And you know, they had a great future ahead of them on a plate, but chose to throw it away. I think the Queen, she was a very Christian person. I mean, she wasn't vindictive. She's just very sad about it, but also very pragmatic. I mean, in every regard, she would be practical, and she could see that being half royal, in and out when you feel like it, was just not going to work. It was an either or, and they chose to be out.
They had a future on a plate, and they threw it away. What happened next is where the story gets darker, because it was not just a lifestyle choice. It was a calculated strategy. And according to multiple royal insiders and business analysts, it was a strategy that was fundamentally broken from the start. The couple relocated to California, hired 3 separate PR firms, signed a Netflix deal worth hundreds of millions. Harry published one of the best-selling memoirs in publishing history. By every metric on paper, they were winning. But here is the number that exposes everything. Their staff retention rate sits at approximately 3.7%. Healthy businesses maintain retention above 90%. No organization functions at 3.7%. That is not a difficult workplace. That is a revolving door with a security guard on the other side, refusing to let people back in.
Yes, well, that's to do with actually her alienating Anna Wintour, who, of course, is the publisher of Vogue, and she really runs the entire shebang. But it's not just Anna that she's alienated. There are others, and I know people who know people who know people, and they all say the same thing. It's, you know, something's true just when you hear, even if it's second or third hand, ubiquitous feedback. And it's the same thing. She's viewed as a landmine. Nobody knows when she's going to go off. If you bump into her, she's going to go off when. And that I heard not those exact words, but I heard about, like it's just literal words like, it's too high risk. I think the word probably I heard the most was risk. It's just too high risk. People don't know what she's going to do, how she's going to use them, and then get dumped. And it's just, people just find it high risk. That's the bottom line.
The charity sector has started saying it out loud now. The Sussex name became a liability for fundraising. Organizations connected to them began struggling to attract donations. Invictus Games, Harry's most genuine and personal project, became overshadowed by the surrounding noise and negative headlines. Even the causes they championed started stepping away quietly. And then came Australia, the tour that was supposed to re-establish them as global humanitarian figures. What the world actually watched was Meghan marketing her clothing line at Bondi Beach, a location associated with a tragedy. Harry simultaneously advocating publicly for children to be shielded from social media while their team pushed Archie and Lilibet content on Instagram. The hypocrisy was not subtle. Not. Even Harry's own allies found it painful to defend.
Well, I have always said, you can tell the success of the business and you can tell the type of business people run and the quality of the leaders by the people that work for them and their retention rate. You can always tell everything. Like if I go to a business and the receptionist is warm and lovely and wonderful to me, I know she or he is treated really well.
And they've been there for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. What's the retention and how do they treat you? Because that's how they're treated, right? And it's I think it's sad to see how many people have left. They have a ghastly retention rate. I think their retention rate, I once calculated for the number of people I've met, is something like 3.7%, which is a terrible number. You look for good businesses have an over 90% retention rate. So that's a factual indicator. That's not my opinion. I'd rather not give my opinion. That is a fact, Mark.
Yes.
That is dreadful for any business, no matter what the business.
Business analysts who have studied the Sussex operation say the same thing repeatedly. The brand is high risk. Not their words. The word used consistently by industry insiders, by people in Hollywood, by contacts close to the charity sector. Risk. Nobody knows what she will do. Nobody knows how they will be used and then discarded. And in an industry built entirely on relationships and trust, that reputation is the kiss of death.
And what was pitiful, obviously, about Australia was the criticism for monetizing everything. The worst thing that came out of that was, of course, Meghan Markle marketing her clothes at Bondi Beach, the site of a massacre. And when Harry's hypocritical, on the one hand, he's literally, I do think it does come from his heart. I think it comes from his heart that he wants to restrict social media for his children. That's very good. A lot of parents want that. But then they're using social media to market Meghan's business. So it's too hypocritical, Mark. That's the issue.
Meanwhile, his speaking fee has collapsed from $1 million per engagement to $50,000. That sounds like money until you factor in the 16-bedroom Montecito estate, the round-the-clock private security, California state taxes, and the lifestyle infrastructure of two people who left the royal family but kept the royal spending habits. The numbers do not work, and the people around them know it. Now we arrive at the part that has sources talking in whispers. Insiders close to the couple and separately, contacts briefing entertainment media are describing serious friction inside the marriage itself. The pressure point is money, specifically Meghan's reported obsession with monetizing everything, while Harry grows increasingly uncomfortable with the direction. Multiple sources describe him as deeply unhappy, not just professionally, personally.
Well, it's always looked a bit dodgy for quite a long time. Harry, in terms of Meghan, he is a husband, he is a father, but he's nothing else. He hasn't really achieved anything. Yes, he's got his Invictus Games. That doesn't happen every often. That's every 2 years. He's in a very precarious position because he doesn't actually know what to do with himself. He hasn't got a role in life. His role finished when he left the army in 2016, his biggest mistake that he ever made, and a mistake that he would probably regret because he could have done great things in the army. He could have moved on to higher positions, but he chose to leave for his own reasons. And he eventually got married to somebody who's really pulled him right down into nothing.
And then came the moment the PR machine could not spin. The Met Gala. The single most visible fashion event in the world, hosted in the city Meghan considers her territory. She was not there. Not uninvited in a vague, ambiguous way. Pointedly absent. Anna Wintour, who controls access to that room more than almost anyone in media, had clearly made a decision. And when the Kardashians, who have navigated their own storms and come out with empires intact, when even that circle distances itself from you, the industry has spoken. Saturday Night Live put a bow on it. A nationally broadcast skit in America portrayed Meghan as the real hostage situation surrounding the royal visit. The audience laughed. Harry was reduced to a punchline. The couple that once commanded the global conversation was now the joke in the room. Where does it stand right now? The Netflix relationship remains, but the creative well of family drama is limited. And the palace is bracing for what might come next if the money gets truly desperate. The charity connections are fractured. The Hollywood alliances are cooling. The business ventures are struggling to gain traction. And the marriage, according to multiple sources, is under a level of strain that is no longer being contained behind closed doors. Harry's future, some close to the situation believe, does not end in California. It ends somewhere quieter, somewhere closer to the life he actually wanted before all of this began. Africa, perhaps? Conservation work. Silence. And Meghan? Those same sources suggest she always wanted something Hollywood could never fully give her. The one thing she walked away from. The thing she could not bear to share with anyone else. The spotlight. Undivided. Unconditional. Hers alone. The question nobody is asking loudly enough is this: when a woman intelligent enough to navigate one of the most scrutinized institutions on earth makes this many enemies this quickly, is that failure? Or is it exactly the plan? If you want the answers nobody else is chasing, subscribe to Viral Spills right now, because this story is not over, not even close.